SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
What's up, y'all? I'm Cliff Furr, and this is Y'all Sports Radio, your weekly look into the athletic happenings going on in Southwest Mississippi. I'm joined by my friend and co-host Brandon Shamatara each week, and our man Randy behind the board. And as always, we're coming to you from SuperTalk 102.1 studio in downtown Brookhaven. Y'all Sports Radio is made possible in part by our friends at Bank of Brookhaven and Toyota Brookhaven. They're so important to us, they're actually mentioned in our theme song, which to me is the ultimate sign of respect we have for B.O.B. and T.O.B., who we'd not be able to do this without. Brandon, last week we had Park Lane Academy head coach Ron Rushing, head football coach, athletic director, on for a really fun football-focused conversation. I love that dude. He's like the John Gruden of Southwest Mississippi, and I mean that as the highest compliment because I'm a Gruden guy myself.
Hey, man, so much fun with Coach Rushing, and I'll just say this. He has stood the test of time no matter what school he's been to, what hand he's been dealt as far as players are concerned. Man, just been successful everywhere he's been. Just such a wonderful coach and a leader, mentor to his assistant coaches and to the players. And then, hey, just all around, a great guy to be around. I mean, you know, some people – some of the greats are just sticks in the mud, but, man, we just had so much fun in between segments and then after the show catching up with Coach Rushing, and I could have spent the whole afternoon with him. Just love that guy.
Yeah, man. Great dude. Great conversation. I really enjoyed that. And I want to circle back to a couple of our previous guests on Y'all Sports Radio. It was a big week for college football commitments here in Brookhaven. BHS junior defensive end Derwin Fields, a guy who would go down in history as the first ever guest on Y'all Sports Radio. They'll have that on his bio next year, I'm sure. Announced he is committed to next play at the University of Texas. Congratulations to Dirt. I know this is like a weight lifted off his shoulders. He was seriously considering some of the blue bloods of college football, and he went to Austin, took a visit this weekend, and decided that would be his next home. He does have until December to change his mind if he sees fit. And BHS junior offensive lineman Kadero McDaniel made his announcement yesterday. He's going to Ole Miss. Kadero was a guest here a couple weeks ago, and he told us off air that Ole Miss was going to be his next home. He was just waiting for his official visit to make that announcement. Love Big Kadero. Can't even begin to describe how happy I am for these two fine young men and how excited I am to see the Panthers back on King Field in 2026. Two SEC guys in a week. Pretty special time at Brookhaven High, Brandon.
Hey, I think Coach Sarkisian must have listened to the first ever Y'all Sports Radio show.
Had to.
And you know, just was like, hey, we got to get our hands on this young man they call Dirt. And so, wonderful. Man, I'm just so happy for him. And I'll tell you, as a junior, I actually went to Austin and played against the Longhorns. And, man, you can see why Dirt fell in love with Austin and the facilities. Coach Sarkisian seems to be a heck of a man and a wonderful coach. I was a little bit bummed, to be honest. I really would like for all of our players to stay in Mississippi, but that's me being greedy. But, you know, hey, wherever the Lord leads them, and, you know, hey, there's still time. There's still time. And so,
yeah, I'm sure there are counteroffers being made, but there's a buzz about the University of Texas's recruiting class right now. There's a wide receiver out of New Orleans that Lane Kiffin's been living in his house, and I think Texas might be pulling him as well. So, man, just excited for those guys.
Man, and then for Kadero, just super excited. When I saw his post come across Facebook, I was like, I fist pumped in the air. I said, yes, let's go.
Well, he made Coach Golding look like a little bitty guy in that picture.
Dude, like, hey, when we posted the picture online of our interview with him, he made me look small and remind me to never, ever, ever, ever take a picture with him ever again.
No, I like taking pictures with him because it makes me look smaller And that's something that most people can't do because of my fried chicken addiction. There is a long, proud tradition of football players from Brookhaven High signing to go to the next level, and we've got one of them actually on our show today. But he is truly a one of one. Dr. Roderick Henderson is the superintendent of the Brookhaven School District. He's a former defensive coordinator of Panther football teams earlier in his career, and before that, he was an unmovable defensive tackle for the Old Brook Panthers as a player. He signed to continue his career after high school with Grambling State University, which he'll tell you was one of the most important decisions in his life. Can't wait to talk about that with him today. Just this week, it was announced that Dr. Henderson will be part of the next Athletic Hall of Fame class at Grambling State. While at GSU, Coach Henderson played for one of the true legends of college football, Eddie Robinson. From our friendship over the past 20 years, I've always felt like Dr. Henderson draws on the lessons taught by Robinson to guide him in his journey from coach to superintendent. What does it mean to call yourself a G-man and be part of this awesome and proud tradition? Those are some of the questions I can't wait to get into with our guest coming up next on Y'all Sports Radio, Dr. Rod Henderson.
Do you have confidence in your bank? This is Shannon Aker with Bank of Brookhaven. You can have confidence in our bank that when you call, someone will actually answer the phone. We know that good, friendly service can go a long way to give you confidence to do the things you need to do. So come by and see us today. We'd love to talk to you at Bank of Brookhaven. Remember, for over 25 years now at Bank of Brookhaven, it's all about you. Bank of Brookhaven, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
This is State Farm Agent Brandon Shamataro, and I take tremendous pride in being a good neighbor. This means being a leader in our community and serving the people in it. I'm dedicated to helping our customers by offering the best coverage at the lowest price possible. We promise to do our best to help. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
At Toyota of Brookhaven, we treat every car and every customer like family. From quick oil changes to certified warranty repairs, we keep your Toyota running like new. We keep you informed with transparent multi-point inspections and expert advice you can trust. Need a fresh start? Our detail team can bring back that new car shine. Toyota of Brookhaven, your trusted hometown choice.
We're back on Y'all Sports Radio. I'm Cliff Furr, and I'm joined by my co-host, Brandon Shamatar, and our guest for this episode, Dr. Roderick Henderson. Rod, before you came on, we were talking about how we've had a couple of Brookhaven School District student athletes make their college pledges over the past week. I want you to take me back to your high school days. You were an all-state defensive tackle for the Panthers. Tell me about your choice to attend Grambling State University back when you were being recruited.
So Grambling was always, in my heart, family-wise. My mom graduated from Grambling. My sister was at Grambling at the time. I attended several games at Grambling, and, of course, everyone knew the great Eddie Robinson, who ended up being an all-time winners coach for a long time.
A legend.
Yeah, truly a legend. And but I really approached my recruiting with an open mind. So I took recruiting visits to Ole Miss. Mm-hmm. They actually flew us. That's the first time I ever flew on a plane.
What's a flight from Brookhaven to Oxford? Is that about 45 minutes?
I mean, yeah, pretty much so. And they flew us on, I don't know whose plane that was. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it was myself.
Somebody with a lot of money.
Mm-hmm. But it was myself, Londis Bryce, who ended up signing with Ole Miss, and Aaron Owens. And the one thing I remember about that, to make a long story short, we got on the plane, we started talking to each other, and about 15 minutes later, we were over the reservoir in Jackson.
Man.
So we were like, that's the reservoir.
What a way to travel.
What a way to travel. So anyway, I left my recruiting open. Alabama, and honestly, Alabama was my choice.
Okay.
Because Bill Curry was the coach at that time.
That's right.
Homer Smith, the offensive coordinator, well-known offensive coordinator at UCLA, mastermind, and a true gentleman, was my recruiting person. And Curry left Alabama in the middle of my recruitment and went to Kentucky.
Okay.
Homer Smith went with him. In came Gene Stallings and another recruiter who I know his name, but I'm not going to say his name. Not as impressive with him, you know. And so after that, I turned my sights on Grambling, and it just took one visit and one meeting with Coach Robinson to sell me, because we sat in his office. And his office had all types of paraphernalia on the walls. I mean, all types of things, Troy. And I was like, wow, this man's truly the real deal. And what got me was all we talked about was life, being a good person. He would always say he wants you to be a great American, make great choices, have a family, and just be the type of person that you should be. And we never talked about football. Not one time we talked about football. And I said, I got to play for this man. Yeah. This is who I want to play for. And we had I said, Coach, I want to come. He said, well, let's toast to it. So we were sponsored by Coke. He poured out one of the coldest. It was back when the bottle Cokes was.
Man. You got my mouth watering, Coach.
Boy, that was the coldest Coke I ever had in my life. And that's how it happened. And I don't regret not 1 minute of it.
Brandon, I'm sitting here and I'm listening to Coach Henderson say all that. And I'm looking at my next question: the greatness of Eddie Robinson, the lessons learned away from the field, and you hit it right there, because I'm sure that as you think back, you probably draw on those lessons every day, Coach. Because everything I've ever read about Coach Robinson was, like you said, it was about, what does it mean to be a man? What does it mean to be a husband, a father one day? He was preparing you for those roles, wasn't he?
Truly was. And we would always say one job. He only had one job. He only had one wife, you know, for all of those years. And he was set on being the perfect example for us. And he did it every day. You know, truly a gentleman. But don't let that smile fool you. Now, he was a true competitor. Yeah. And one thing I loved about him was he was honest with us. He never sugarcoated anything. After a loss, he always took the blame. But we knew that we let him down. Yeah. That was the one thing you never wanted to do with Coach. You let him down. And but we also knew come Monday, he was going to get all of that back from us.
He was going to get the get back.
Yeah. Monday came around real fast after a loss, and you talk about preparing and double preparing and triple preparing. I don't remember us losing a bunch of games in a row the time I was there, you know, but I do remember all the lessons that he taught us. You know, you're talking about a man who was in his 70s at the time when I played for him, late 70s, and a man who woke us up every morning with a cowbell.
Yeah, Coach, I imagine if you missed class.
Oh no!
Oh, that was just not even possible, right?
Well, what he would do, he would come in with his assistants and he'd ring that cowbell, and I could hear it now. Oh my God! And you had to sit up and put your feet on the floor. You couldn't stay in the bed, and your ID had to be sitting on the counter. So he came in about 5:30. He'd get your ID, and he would leave and take it to the cafeteria. And you would have to get up, put your clothes on, go down to the cafeteria and get your ID. Well, at Grambling, if you did, that ID was your lifeline. That's how you ate all day. That's how you functioned. You got in things. So if you didn't get it, your day was, it was over with. You know, you had to figure out some way to eat. Yeah. But his whole philosophy was, if you can get up and come get that ID from the cafeteria, you can eat a good meal. Yeah. You can eat breakfast, and then you can take yourself to class. Yeah. Wow. And that was his philosophy. Now, if you chose not to, then you were going to see him the next morning in the stadium, and you're going to run something called marathons.
Oh, come on.
Which our dorm was located right behind the old stadium. And we're not talking about King Field bleachers. We're talking about football stadium bleachers. Older stadium, but still bleachers. Yeah. I never had to do marathons. Yeah, I didn't want to do that early in the morning.
Like you can remember the cowbell ringing. I'm sure the guys who had to do marathons, they can probably remember the time.
I'm sure they did.
And I love what you said about the desire to not let him down. You know, I was fortunate to spend 4 years as an assistant with Gwen Young at Co-Lin. He won 1,000 women's basketball games at Co-Lin. And somebody went to ask me, what's the key? And I said, well, preparation's one. He was always prepared. Another one was The girls had a connection with him. They did not want to let him down. Losing felt like losing him, letting him down.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, man. Yeah, just you knew that the amount of time that he put into preparing us, we put a lot of time into. And you know, as a former coach, you know, you have to put that time in. But we would, I mean, just the game plan at that time. He was ahead of his time because he would go to the pro camps. He would go out to with the Raiders. They had a relationship with the Raiders, the Rams, because we all had former players from Graham. Willie Brown played for. He's a Hall of Famer for the Raiders, right. and for the Rams, James Shaq Harris played quarterback there. All coached by Coach Robinson, and they would invite him out. He would go out and speak, but he would also pick their minds and their brains. And quickly, we ran the wing T. But what people don't realize is in practice, we would run the shotgun.
Wow.
Right. We would run shotgun and spread and all that.
He would experiment with it. He couldn't commit to it in the game.
We would be excited, and we would never run it my first 2 years in the game.
Yeah.
So, but then my last 2 years, we opened it up a little more and started running it. And he got all those things from, professional teams that he went and visited.
And that's just impressive to be that he was in his 70s and still a student of the game.
Still a student of the game.
And so, hey, it's easy to respect somebody who takes that approach. It really is. Coach, I want to change gears here. Before you came on with us, Cliff and I were talking about how you were going to be announced as a member of the next class of Grambling Athletics Hall of Fame. Congratulations being the second Hall of Famer we've had on this show.
Okay.
Cornelia Gayden at LSU. But I want to know how it was presented to you. Was it a phone call? And then tell us how, just the feelings that came over you in that moment, because it had to be a special time. Were you expecting it? And then, they just don't put people in the Hall of Fame. So, hey, props to you for, just all your accomplishments. But I'll shut up and let you tell us the story.
Well, the Grambling Legends Hall of Fame, the group is composed of former Grambling athletes. And, of course, we have Hall of Famers, Pro Football Hall of Famers, and Hall of Famers in track. And
bunch of them.
Ralph Gard just had his jersey retired. Ralph Gard was an all-time MLB baseball legend. He played for the Atlanta Braves. So I've been, kind of not knowing it could be a possibility. I knew I was on the ballot again this year. I've been on the ballot for a couple of years. Yeah. And I could tell you this, I got the phone call. We were in Pensacola. It was over spring break. Pensacola, Florida is actually where myself and my wife honeymooned. That's the first time we had been back to Pensacola.
Oh, wow.
Since then.
Yeah. Did you have the boys with you?
The boys were with us, but they were in their own room. Thank goodness. We bump into each other. It's too much, too much mass,
too much testosterone and mass.
There's too many big people when we were around. But we got the call that morning, and you talk about euphoria, so to speak.
Oh, man.
And just the feeling that actually, Coach, it's the feeling of I did right. Yeah. I know that might sound odd, or I did good. Yeah. Because we're talking about a university that has all, the tradition is so deep. And to be in the midst with those who have come before me, it was a special feeling. It's still a special feeling. It's still sinking in. I got a call about it today about some things I have to make sure I'm taking care of. And I was the type of player where I wasn't the flashiest. I wasn't the loudest. But I was there. I was. You could depend on me.
Sure.
I was going to be there. I was going to do my job. And my mindset as a freshman was I want to contribute, but I ended up starting games. Yeah. And on there, not missing, just being dependable, being that person. And sometimes you wonder, are you being noticed? You get your accolades and things like that. I was freshman of the year. I was all Louisiana, all SWAC first team, all American first team. I hear you. And just throwing it out there, and team captain my last year. So I did the things that it took, but I never was the type of person. I'm not a look at me person. Even today, the board tells me, you don't really, tell us all that you've done. They find out things.
Yeah,
on
from the internet. Yeah,
you're doing this, but that's just not me.
Yeah,
you know, and that's the coach in me. That's the player in me, and that's Coach Robinson. He was never that type of person.
Well, and I'll say this. So everything that you just said, the only thing that continued to come into my mind is leadership. Mm-hmm. And so when you're doing the right things, no matter if you were the best player as a freshman or not, you know, and only into your other years, but when you're doing the right things and you're saying the right things, and you're being on time and you're at everything, that's leadership. Mm-hmm. And so I'll go ahead and say it. You were a great leader because you won't say it. You won't say it. It ain't in you to say it. I'll say it for you. You were a great leader there, and I didn't have to be there with you to know that, because you're going to be a Hall of Famer, and everything you just told me, hey, props to you.
I appreciate that. And then one quick story. As a freshman, I was walking to a meeting. We always met at night, and I was an hour early. And my position coach, you know, he was big on physical fitness. He would power walk, and he caught up with me.
Yeah.
He said, Rod, you know, he called it Rod. That's how he said it. He said, "Well, you early, ain't you?" I said, "Coach, I gotta, you know, that's just me. I gotta get there, get myself together. I want to be early." And he looked at me and he said, "Just keep doing what you're doing. You're gonna be all right."
That's right.
Just keep doing what you're doing.
Well,
keep that mentality.
I've had the pleasure of teaching Rod's sons, RJ and Michael, and I can tell you right now, the apple does not fall very far from the tree at all. I know you're involved with a foundation that includes former Grambling football alums. Mm-hmm. They've got a goal of supporting the program. Man, it just looks to me, just as an outsider looking in, you guys have a real special camaraderie about what it means to be a G-man, right? Does it go back to that pride of playing for Coach Robinson and the place that has that tradition?
Absolutely. You're talking about G-Man Nation Incorporated, which brought us together. This was during COVID. This brought us back together, and every time we would get around each other, it was like we've never been apart.
Hadn't missed a beat.
And you're talking about being away from each other almost 30 years, you know. But that brought us back together. We got on, you know, Marco Polo, checking on each other, just seeing how each other was doing. And then we started talking about what can we do to contribute and give back to the university, something that really meant so much to us. And you know, Coach Rob is the focal point, but you had individuals like Fred Hobby, who was all-time great basketball coach there, and Wilbur Ellis, who's still living. Coach Ellis, great person, all-time winning baseball coach there. So many other individuals. So we wanted to come together and do what we could to not only uplift the program, but to continue with the legacy.
Yeah.
And we always would say it's our legacy, our responsibility.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the saying that we have, our legacy, our responsibility for making sure that the legacy of those individuals continues on and that it does not die out. So that's what our goal is.
I'm sure the people at Grambling love having alums like that involved. And my wife works in alumni affairs, and I mean, I see every day how important it has. In fact, your wife, Dr. Stephanie Henderson, and I, we were talking recently, and we were talking about that, about how I'm a Co-Lin guy, and I feel such a love for she works at Co-Lin now. I love Co-Lin so much because I can look at who I was as a high school student, and I know, but I wouldn't have made it if I went straight to a four-year school. I needed to start in Weston.
Well, it prepared you.
Yeah, and I feel a great allegiance and a real love. Look, I saw a picture of Dr. Henderson during his time at Grambling, and you could see what a game changer he was as a lineman. We know how important linemen are at Y'all Sports Radio, and we're honored to have two as our supporters of this show, in Brown and Shamatara with State Farm Insurance, and Sam Ballard with Good Hope Land and Timber. We wouldn't be able to get Y'all Sports Radio across the goal line without their support. Thanks, Brandon. Thanks, Sam. We'll have another segment with Dr. Roderick Henderson talking about his journey from defensive coordinator to superintendent when we get back on Y'all Sports Radio.
We're proud to share some big news with our community. Toyota Brookhaven is the first dealership in Southwest Mississippi to earn the Distinguished Toyota President's Award.
This is Toyota's highest honor, recognizing dealerships that go above and beyond with customer satisfaction, sales performance, service, and overall operations.
What makes this award truly special is you. From all of us at Toyota Brookhaven, thank you. This award belongs to you. Toyota of Brookhaven, your trusted hometown choice.
Trust the experts at Good Hope Land and Timber, your full-service land and timber company with years of experience in forestry and land management. From land and timber purchasing, timber management, plantation thinning, and development harvesting, our team handles it all. Our experienced logging force is trained to the highest standards under the Sustainable Forestry Initiative and best management practices. Call Sam Ballard today at 601-669-5999. Good Hope Land and Timber, locally trusted, landowner approved.
When every path in the jungle of financial services looks the same, it's easy to lose your way. One wrong turn and you could end up in a web of confusion. This is Shannon Aker with Bank of Brookhaven. When the going gets tough, it's better to bank with people you know. People who are committed to you and your future. Remember, friends, for over 25 years now at Bank of Brookhaven, it's all about you. Bank of Brookhaven, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
All right, we're back on Y'all Sports Radio. I'm Cliff Furr, the Y'all and Y'all Sports. I'm joined by my co-host and friend, Brandon Shamatara. Find us on Facebook by searching Y'all Sports. If you missed any of this episode, then you can go back and hear it in its entirety wherever you get your podcast by searching Y'all Sports Radio. That's made possible by our friends at Juan Seed Store. It's more than a seed store at Juan's, where they've got all kinds of exciting things going on this week as they're celebrating their grand opening. Check them out and let them know Y'all Sports sent you. Our guest today is Dr. Roderick Henderson, the superintendent of the Brookhaven School District. Coach and I were talking off air, and we were talking about, I always thought he played defensive lineman at Grambling. Did not realize he was an offensive lineman. I saw that picture of him wearing 72. Told me that was his dad, Pat Henderson's number back when he played. And we'll get into that in a minute here. But, Rod, I've heard you speak on this before, but tell me about your family's legacy teaching in the Brookhaven School District. It kind of felt like you just were meant to go in education, right?
Yeah, it runs deep. My mom taught here music for over 31 years. Yeah. I have two aunts. My Aunt Jerry taught typing at Brookhaven High School, and she was rough on all of us. But I tell you, I'm thankful for that because I learned how to type, and
it's helped you today
tremendously. Yeah. My administrative assistant gets mad at me because I type all my things. I don't let her do it, but I love typing.
I love typing too.
Yeah, I love typing. Yeah. So it's not just making the noise; it's actually doing something.
That's
well.
right.
My Aunt Dorothy, she taught for over 40-something
years.
A
legend, Brandon. Yeah. Brandon, I was teaching at Brookhaven High when Miss Henderson was still teaching government. Mm-hmm. And buddy, when I tell you that when I walked past her room, I stood up straighter. I walked. I mean, she was a legend at not giving anybody any slack. It was what you got.
Yeah.
And she taught government. Yes, and so if you're going to graduate high school, you had to get through Miss Henderson.
Wow.
Proper posture and everything. You had
right.
to sit up straight, and if you did not know the answer, you had to say, I am not sure, Miss Henderson. It wasn't in, I don't know.
I don't know.
That didn't happen, not in her class.
Yeah.
But they are both wonderful people. And and even my grandmother worked at the high school. She worked there. So it ran deep. I tell people I had no room for error because my mom seemed like at one point my mom moved every time I moved from school. So I would move from Mullins to Lipsy. There my mom was, and then I moved from Lipsy. She stopped moving when I got to Alexander because my Aunt Dorothy was there.
Okay.
And then when I got to the high school, my Aunt Jerry was there. I knew she was following me. I just knew, she had to keep an eye on me.
My kids told me not to do that. I'm a teacher in the Brookhaven School District. Very blessed to teach at Alexander, and I've got to teach my two over the last 4 years. It's been the greatest experience of my life. But I'm going to miss my son. He's got about a month left of 8th grade. And I said to him and my daughter, they're going to get their 1 year at BHS together next year as a 9th and 12th grader. Yeah. And I said, what if I come join you guys? And my daughter said, absolutely not. So I'll be at AJH again next year.
Coach, just hearing you say that, there was no opportunity for you to hide.
No. Father was a police officer. Mother was a teacher.
Yeah.
Growing up during a time where everybody raised everybody.
Yeah.
And I had so many people that had eyes on me, and I appreciate it.
Oh, man.
I tell my friends and my sons now, look, I wouldn't change the way I was raised. I'm thankful for that. Sometimes you don't understand why it's happening, you know, but when you get older and you get your own, you understand great. It's clear to you then.
I'm glad you brought up Dad. That's going to be my next segment here. All right, Pap Henderson, longtime police officer here in Brookhaven, and went on to be elected chief. Tell me what it was like to grow up with a dad in law enforcement in a small town in South Mississippi.
Well, it was, it was interesting, but you see, everyone knew everyone, and this was during the time when you knew everyone on the police force. So, if you were doing anything out of the way, you were called to the carpet on it real quick. But my dad always had just simple rules for me when it came to, just making sure I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. He always told me, if you get in trouble, don't use my name. Yeah. He did. He said, if you get in trouble in any way, do not use my name. You take that ticket, you take whatever's coming to you, and you bring it on to the house, and you come on to the house.
That's great parenting.
And he meant that, and I appreciated that because, it made me realize that I always realized it, but I'm not above anybody because my father's a police officer and went on to be police chief. No, it actually made me want to uphold the name, because your name means something.
That's right.
And I tell my sons, you better be a man of your word, and your name means something to you. And so it was difficult, but it wasn't difficult because I understood exactly what he meant. And my mom, too. And people believe my dad was hard on me. My mom was the one. Yeah. My mom was, and she felt, I knew why, because she knew, when my dad had to be off, she had to be able to deal with me. I have sisters too, but she had to be able to deal with me because I was looking her in the eyes at a pretty early age. And that didn't bother her. My mom's from Louisiana, and she's a Louisiana woman from Alexandria, and she took no stuff off of me. She was tougher on me than my dad was. Yeah, but at the same time, I appreciated all of that, and they were great parents.
Great people. Brandon, when I was growing up, I can't remember what grade I was in. I was in upper elementary, probably about 6th grade, and we did a little tour of the courthouse, and we went back through the old jail, and Pap was there, and he gave us a talk about what the jail was like. He showed us some shivs and some things that they'd pulled off of inmates over the years.
He had a case of them.
That's right. He had a case. He had a case of weapons, and he would show it to you. And buddy, it would make you not want to go to jail real quick because Pat was an old school police officer, a man of the people. Everybody in Brookhaven knew him. Dr. Henderson, how's his health right now?
We just came back from Jackson. He's dealing with pancreatic cancer, and it's a tough one. But my dad's a strong person. The only thing I remember about him complaining about sometimes would be his back. I would come home and he would be laying on the floor. Yeah. Whenever he laid on that floor, his back was bothering. Yeah. And it wasn't that often, but I've never really heard him complain that he was sick or anything like that. So this is something new. That to see him having to deal with this, but he's handling it in a way that I've always knew he would. Yeah. Strong. Cancer. I'm just so. To me, I'm passionate about. I would love one day for someone to figure this thing out. Because it's taken so many loved ones. My mom passed away from cancer, and cancer doesn't run deep in our family at all. So this kind of came as a real shocker here. But it's brought a lot of attention to it from my standpoint. I'm a lot more aware about myself now, making sure I'm trying to do all I can to deal with it.
That's important because that's something my dad has always taught me is that, and my dad is a logger who never went to college, but he's got a lot of practical sense about him. And he said, Cliff, a lot of times men will suffer in silence thinking that we have to uphold this idea of what manhood looks like. And he's always said, son, go to the doctor, get checked up, get your numbers looked at, because you're going to be glad that you caught something, and you don't want to put yourself in a position where you say, wow, I should have gotten this looked at earlier.
I agree totally. And that's my mentality. regarding that now. At one point I would run from the doctor. I don't want to hear what you have to say. I know it's bad. I don't want to hear about it, but still, face it and then deal with it and find it early, whatever it might be, and we'll deal with it. Well, he thanks for asking. He's doing pretty good.
You were a defensive coordinator on the 2004 state championship team. And talk to me about what it was like to work for Coach Tucker Peavy. You and I were co-workers right around that time at Brookhaven High, and I don't think people realize the hours that coaching staff put in. Coach Peavy, he had come from the college game. You guys had a routine that included lots of game time, preparing and planning and things like that, right?
Coach Peavy was probably the most organized person I've ever been around. Next to Coach Robertson, as far as we knew everything that we were going to do each part of the day. From the moment we got to the field house, who needed to be where. I have the locker room, or I have the back step, or I have the laundry room, I have this, or I have the equipment room. Everyone knew what everyone had a responsibility. And it was like a machine. Bam, 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 bam. And we would get out there and he would have the plan out, the schedule laid out, and we would go by it. We would stick to it. If we had to adjust, we could. I think that allowed us to be as organized as we possibly could, and I think that actually allowed us to be better. During years when we didn't have as much talent, we were prepared though. And we always had a plan B. If plan A did not work out, we took great pride, especially on the defensive side, of making halftime adjustments. Always had a plan B and sometimes a plan C, but all of the coaches on that staff.
Oh, great group of guys.
Great group of guys. I don't want to name them all because I miss somebody, but I can.
I know you can. And look, I'll tell you, one time I was in the field house and I was looking at Mike Powell's desk. Mike Powell was coaching there, and Mike's desk was absolutely just organized to a T. And I said, man, Coach, the assistant coach's locker room office was just everybody's. And he's like, buddy, if it's not right, Coach Peavy will tell you it's not right. You got to get it right. And I'm like, man, what a standard that everybody's desk has to, be organized.
He would come in there and you knew when you heard this, hey, fellas, or hey, guys, something was coming behind it, that something wasn't right. Somebody might have left out a strap. Oh, that was a no-no, a strap. And I'll tell you, this is a testament about discipline. And the players caught on this so fast. If you didn't have all those toilets flushed, Coach Trevor Brister, he loved this. This was his specialty. He walked through there, do the final walkthrough, and if one of those if anything, tissue on the floor, toilets were not flushed, anything like that, seats were not clean, he would walk out. Coach, do you do that right there? Get them going.
Yeah.
Somebody messed up, and we're about to in the middle of whatever we were doing. It's time to do some up downs. But guess what? The players started policing themselves, and they would start leaving one player behind to go back and check and make sure everything was good.
You better go flush that toilet.
Jesse Bowman was good at that. When he was there, he would do that, and he'd come out there, hey, man, somebody's, this. I took care of it, but, and when you have a group of young men that police themselves and take care of issues. And that's the type of team we had. We didn't have to really do a lot of discipline, They took care of that themselves.
And look, I love that analogy, man, because when I was at a practice a couple of years ago for the newspaper, I got to hear Coach Peavy give a talk about that. And he was telling the boys somebody had not flushed the toilet. And he was saying, boys, nobody in this world was born to come behind you and flush your pee down a toilet. Yeah. That's the job that God gave you. Not your mama, not your maid, nobody. And he was telling it with a lot of passion, a lot of fire after they had completed the up downs that had been the punishment for it. And it made me want to go check behind myself.
Yeah, I mean, and I just take it back to my playing and coaching days. And I don't think we talk about this enough now, but it's the little things. If you can't do the little things right, how are we going to do the big things that's going to make us successful? Right. So I tell you what, if you're taking over a program, inheriting one that they hadn't figured out the little thing, you have to start with the little stuff. That's and right. It's, maybe you tuck your shirts in when you're going cloth at practice. Mm-hmm. Hey, everybody, we're going to have the same socks. Yep. And if we can't do that, then we're going to have to continue. We're going to stay where we are until we can get this figured out and complete the little things, and then the rest will handle itself.
And that's what we would do. That's what Coach Peavy would do on defense. Mondays were our walkthrough day and film day. Well, our players hated Mondays because they knew we had we tore the film apart Sunday. Yeah. So we would do what we call loafs. And we would
we did loafs. Well, count them babies.
Yeah, loafs for us was you're not sprinting to the ball.
That's it.
We didn't get 11 to the ball. You took this wrong step. You took that wrong step. Look at your hand placement. Look at this and look at that. Where your eyes at? Things like that.
Yeah.
So those, and they knew it. They knew. Okay. So all of those would be lows. Okay, what we got, Coach? We got 20. Let's go. And we would take care of it, but that's the small stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. Hand placement, small thing. Yep. Foot placement, small thing. Eye placement, small thing. And most of all, being accountable.
That's right.
Small thing.
Yeah. And hey, that 2004 defense, yes, Jesse Bowman up front, a lot of talent. But when I think about them, a lot of guys who played over their head because of the effort and the speed that they would go to the ball. And you don't beat people like Wayne County and West Jones back in that era without having guys that are completely bought in.
I would tell anybody, when you put a film on about, you're not going to see any fancy, complex, exotic blitzes. But what you will see, you're going to see 11 individuals getting to the ball.
Yeah.
If you couldn't have the passion, and if you couldn't have the desire, and if you couldn't get to the ball, by any means necessary, you couldn't play for me on defense. Yeah. That's all I ask.
Yeah. Was it hard, Coach, giving it up and moving into administration, or did it feel like maybe that's what God was calling you to do?
It was hard. It was hard because a lot of things happened during the time when I gave up. When I gave up coaching, I was actually supposed to be assistant principal at Alexander, and Miss Barrett called me and said, "Well, if I want to move you to assistant principal, but you're gonna have to give up coaching." Okay, so all in about a month and 2 months, I got married. I got married in May 31st.
Yeah,
we went on our honeymoon
to Pensacola.
Pensacola, that's right. Came back. When we came back, I remember we were at my mom and dad's house. I got a phone call from Miss Barrett. Mr. Barrett said, "Change the plan. You're no longer going to be assistant principal." I was like, "Okay, well." Change the plan. I'm going to go back to coaching.
Yeah, pick my whistle up.
Yeah, here we go. Let's go. I didn't want to put it down anyway. Yeah. She said, "You're going to be principal." I said, "What?"
Hold on. Out of the fire into the frying pan.
Yes, sir. She said, "Don't worry about it. You can do it. Let me know what you're going to do. I'll give you a couple of days." Yeah. So, talked about it with my family, went ahead, took that position. And then a year later, my mom passed away. Then a year later, my grandmother passed away. And up in there, we had a son to be born. It was a lot going on, And so it was like boom, 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 and about 3, 4, 5 years passed by, and it was like such a blur. All within that time, I'm missing coaching. Yeah, and during that time, Tucker then went back to the state.
That's right,
state champ. And I'm like, wow, this is tough. This is tough.
And you watching from the sideline.
I couldn't go to games.
Yeah,
I did not go to games because 2 reasons. A lot of people would not allow you to watch a game in peace.
That's right.
Coach, what would you do? Why are they doing that? That I don't like that. I'm not out there. That's not my time. It's their time. Be patient. Just watch. And
that's one thing I know about you. You're not going to talk about it.
No. I'm going to support you. I'm not going to talk about you. And the other thing was I just didn't have the peace in my mind to be able to sit there and watch a game. Yeah. And so it was difficult. It took a while, Coach, for me to get it out of my system. And that's why I tell young coaches now, before you walk away from it, make sure it's out of your system. Yeah. Make sure it's out of your system. So it was difficult.
Well, you took over Alexander, and you turned the school in a positive direction. It's been going ever since. And, I cheerlead for Alexander. I didn't go to the Brookhaven School District. I didn't go to Alexander when I was growing up, but people need to know that Alexander is a great school. The kids love being in that 7th and 8th grade group together. We make it fun, and your discipline record over there is still talked about to this day. Brandon, they would have something called silent lunch.
Okay.
Where I heard even the lunch ladies wouldn't say a word.
They still talk about it.
Yeah, they still talk about silent lunch. It's a threat we hold over the kids. We had to bring it back a little bit this year. Hey, if you don't act right, we're going to silent lunch. And for a bunch of 7th and 8th graders, silent lunch is rough, man.
I felt kind of bad about it at first. I did because, it's just it was two reasons. One thing, they were getting too loud, and the next thing was I'm like, let's just see what this sounds like.
Yeah.
I want to know if they can do it.
Yeah, yeah.
And once we started it, it was eerie. All you heard was, the regular clacking of dishes and all.
Yeah.
Hands clacking in the background.
I didn't intend for the cafeteria workers, to not say, but they didn't. They would.
Hey, they're asking if you want beans with sign language.
They're whispering. They're whispering, "What's your number?" To the children, "What's your number?" The kids are whispering to them. And it was just something that I felt a need of. But, Alexander holds a special place in my heart.
Absolutely.
Special place, period. When you walk in there, there's so much tradition.
The history on the wall.
The history. You go in the auditorium, and there are all the classes, and you see people,
a lot of Hendersons.
A lot of Hendersons. My dad's
right.
in there, my uncles in there, both my aunts in there. So many different people who came through them. Spillers and Spillers.
I tell our kids today, I say, hey, go look at those Alexander High School class composites, and you look at how those folks, those Bowies, those Hendersons, those Spillers, those folks they're full grown. When they're graduating, they were full grown. They were adults. The people at Alexander, the legendary principals and administrators had prepared them for life after high school, and that's what we're trying to do a little bit.
That's the starting point. 7th and 8th grade is a very, very important time, and I would tell people I love seeing them come in one way and leaving a better way.
Amen.
They would mature. You see the 7th graders come in wide-eyed, and then when they leave as 8th graders, they're going to the high school.
That's right. They're ready. I asked my son yesterday. I said, "You ready to go to the high school?" And he said, "Yes, sir. I'm ready for it." I love it. Hey, we're gonna take one more break. When we come back, we're gonna talk a little bit more with Dr. Henderson before we run out of time. Gonna talk about that Brookhaven High state championship that we're still riding high on his son, a starting offensive lineman for that. Back next on Y'all Sports Radio.
Do you have confidence in your bank? This is Shannon Aker with Bank of Brookhaven. You can have confidence in our bank that when you call, someone will actually answer the phone. We know that good, friendly service can go a long way to give you confidence to do the things you need to do. So come by and see us today. We'd love to talk to you at Bank of Brookhaven. Remember, for over 25 years now at Bank of Brookhaven, it's all about you. Bank of Brookhaven, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Welcome to Juan's Seed Store, your go-to spot for all your farming and agriculture needs right here in Brookhaven. Located at 636 Greenview Trail, we're much more than just a seed store. Need boots? We've got you covered with Durango, Rocky, Muddy, and Gator Wader brands. And if you're looking for style, rock and roll denim will keep you looking sharp while you work. We also carry durable key overalls and workwear. Shop with us Monday to Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Saturday from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. Juan Seed Store, where we're so much more than just a seed store.
At Toyota of Brookhaven, we treat every car and every customer like family. From quick oil changes to certified warranty repairs, we keep your Toyota running like new. We keep you informed with transparent multi-point inspections and expert advice you can trust. Need a fresh start? Our detail team can bring back that new car shine. Toyota of Brookhaven, your trusted hometown choice.
All right, we're back on Y'all Sports Radio. I'm Cliff Furr, joined by my friend and co-host Brandon Shamatara, and we've got about 5 more minutes here with Dr. Rod Henderson. Man, have had a blast today, folks. If you've missed any of it, go back and give the podcast a listen. Dr. Henderson, I mean, this is the highest compliment. A lot of times we only have about 20, 30 minutes with a guest, and we turn them loose. I feel like I wish we had a whole nother hour with you.
I'll come back. I got a lot more.
Absolutely. And the last thing I want to hit on today is one of my favorite memories from this run to the state championship that Brookhaven High experienced in 2025 that Brandon and I still talk about all the time. We're so excited for the upcoming football season. Your son, RJ, will be a senior next year, starting offensive lineman. Just a great, heady, cerebral player. A lot of fun to watch blocking up front. One of my favorite memories of the run to the championship was, I believe it was the Laurel game. I believe maybe it was at South State. He got a penalty. He got about a 15-yard penalty in the game in the first half. And you stand over on the sideline. You stand apart and you watch there as a former coach and as a dad. But I saw you. I guess it was after the game. You didn't stop him at halftime, I don't think. But after the game, you were letting him know, like, hey, this is what you got to do if you're put in that situation again. And I saw the old Coach Henderson hat on, and man, you were getting after it, Coach.
Well, I felt like he was right. I mean, I remember exactly what you're talking about. One of their players was giving one of our players the business on the ground, after the play, and he grabbed the guy and got him off of his teammate, and they flagged him for that. And I was telling them, do it again.
Yeah,
that's what I was yelling. Do it again.
Yeah,
do it because that's your player. That's your teammate. Don't stand there and watch. And I always told him, as an old lineman, go pick your player up.
That's right.
So that's what happened, Coach.
Oh man, I love it. Now I saw Coach Henderson when I walked down on the field. Brandon was in the stadium there at Mississippi State, and it's raining, and we're getting ready to play Goliath. And I said, Rod, you more nervous now or coaching in one? And he said, right now, watching my boy play.
Exactly. Right now. And it's different, when it's your child out there other than yourself. It was such a special feeling seeing that happen. And I just had the feeling that we were going to beat them.
Well, hey, we did too.
I just had the feeling. I watched film on them, actually. Yeah. And I said, I'm going to watch some film, see if I can pick up some things on them. And when I watched the Holmes County game, I said, we need to take them into the deep water.
Yep.
Nobody took them into the deep water all year long. Holmes, it was 14-6. Holmes actually scored the goal to try to tie it, and it was a penalty.
That's right.
And then they went up 20-6, and that was it.
Yeah.
I said, if we just take them into the deep water late into the game and make them uncomfortable, we have the talent to pull this game out. And our boys, they did so. I mean, they did a wonderful job.
Just take it back to like the first quarter, first half. I mean, it's like you can't say everything went wrong, but so much went wrong.
4 turnovers.
Yeah, right. 4 turnovers that was uncharacteristic of Panther football. And so I'm watching, and I had Senator Barrett. We rode together, and I said, hey, man, after the second turnover, well, their first play on offense was a touchdown. And he looked at me, and I looked at him. I said, just hold on. I've been watching these guys close now. I said, hold on. They're relentless. They're not going to let up. They're not going to let something like this get them down. And just to see all the things go wrong, but then the perseverance through it all. And it's like, to me, that was the most incredible part of it, because let me tell you something. When things go wrong against a great team that had the season, not like the type of season, but the seasoning that West Point has, it's easy to lay down.
Easy.
If you weren't prepared. But and I attribute so much to the coaching staff and the job that they did, all the way, years leading up to this, because this don't just happen flash in the pan. This is something that's is a long time coming. But just the fact that they overcame all that, man, I didn't have a kid on the field like you. I didn't really have a dog in the fight except for my love of watching the Panthers. I was just like, this is incredible. Yeah. This is incredible. I'm getting chill bumps right now.
Hey, I'm going to go home and watch the film this afternoon, man. I want to thank Dr. Rod Henderson. He's my longtime friend of mine, and he's the superintendent of Brookhaven School Districts. But as you heard, he's so much more. He's a Grambling Hall of Famer. Dr. Henderson, great time with you on Y'all Sports Radio today. Thank you so much, sir.
Y'all doing great things with Y'all Sports. You're doing a wonderful job, Coach.
Thanks,
I love
Doc.
it. Thanks so much.
Doc.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.